If you think about it, of course, decent work is very central to people's lives everywhere in the world. If you're able to have a job that can earn you a living, where you're treated with some respect and dignity, you have a certain standing in the community, you're able to be productive. And as a result, having a decent job is both a means and an end to sustainable development. Without the population at large, men and women, having a decent job, the prospects of really eradicating poverty or achieving sustainable development in terms of saving the planet from irreparable damage, from making sure that societies are cohesive and stick together. It's really hard to imagine how we can make progress with all the 17 goals if we don't make progress with the idea of promoting full and productive employment and decent work for all. Deliberately been described as something that has a floor but no ceiling, in that countries will be able to define what is their aspiration for decent work. In a rich country, there are still lots of people who may be earning in terms of dollars and cents, a lot more than somebody in a poor developing country, but maybe they're working very long hours, maybe they're not able to combine work with family responsibilities, so they're dissatisfied, they're not finding their job decent, and we need to help them to find a way forward. In many of the poorest developing countries, the issues are even more basic. It's being able to have a job that gets you out of poverty. It's a job that can yield you some basic social protection, so that if you fall ill, you don't fall into poverty. That you have some protection there. That you have a possibility of an old age pension, so that you can actually retire and you don't have to keep working till you drop. Again, making sure that children don't have to go out to work, so that we actually have children who can enjoy childhood and get a schooling, and thus be much more productive in society when they become adults. And also that there's a representation, so that the workers' voice is heard alongside the voice of employers in discussion with governments, so that the policies can be designed with the participation of the people who actually have to do the work. So decent work is a combination of all these things, of actually having employment, of having social protection, having the possibility of voice and social dialogue, and having your rights respected, the right to join a free trade union, the right to escape from discrimination, the end to slavery, the end to forced labor, and the end to discrimination in employment. Well, I think probably the biggest lesson learned is that you have to connect the pursuit of decent work to all the other major policy areas. It isn't something that ministries of labour or ministries of employment within government can work on their own. They also need to think about how it connects to trade policy, how it connects to environmental policy, and most importantly of all, how it connects to inclusive growth. Because if the economies are growing very slowly, the chances of being able to create enough new jobs, and jobs that are of a certain quality and standing, to be able to eradicate poverty and all the other objectives are really limited. So I think the major thing is realizing that you can only pursue this goal in an integrated way. Now, I think that lesson has actually been learned across the whole set of development goals, but it applies particularly to the goal of decent work. That number of 600 million is the estimated increase in the global workforce by 2030. So we're adding about 40 million new people, men and women, mainly young people, to the global workforce every year, so that by 2030, just to stand still, we've got to create 600 million jobs. Furthermore, we currently have 870 million men and women who are working, probably working quite long and quite hard, and they're not able to earn enough to get themselves and their families out of poverty, out of $2 a day poverty. So it's not enough just to create any old job. If we're going to achieve the goal of eradicating poverty and achieve the goal of full employment, we've got to create decent jobs. So it really is a major challenge. Some might say that it's overly ambitious. But if you think about what sort of world will we have in 2030, if we're still dealing with the problem of large-scale youth unemployment, for example, it's going to be a pretty miserable place. So what can the ILO do? Well, clearly the ILO isn't going to create 600 million jobs itself. This happens in member states. It isn't even government that's going to create those. It's employers. And so it's the partnerships between government, employers and trade unions, workers' representatives, that is really key. The ILO will be doing its best to support member states. For example, on youth employment, we've developed a decent jobs for youth initiative with 18 other international agencies. So we have a consortium, if you like, of international agencies that is going to be working to help governments to develop policies that generate the sort of jobs for youth that we need. But there are many, many others. Social protection floor. This is a topic of great interest in many countries. Again, one that we will be working with in partnership with other agencies. Minimum wages is going to be important, wage setting, tackling discrimination. If you want to increase the job challenge a little more, if we were to reduce the gap in employment participation by 25% for women by 2030, that's another 200 million jobs. And again, they've got to be decent jobs. So there's a whole range of policies that we can put together. The main thing is to help countries to have this inclusive strategy in which all the various tools are pulling together to generate the jobs that we're really going to need. I think one of the big challenges of the 2030 agenda is that it is integrated. The phrase, the integrated approach, is one that you find all across the 2030 agenda. This is going to be very challenging for the system because we are all specialists. The ILO is specialist in the world of work, and we're very proud of that. We think we know what we're talking about in that area. But we've got to be able to connect that to people who are working on environmental questions, people who are working in ministries of finance, on fiscal policy. So we ought to be able to, as a team, work out how to connect together to be of service to the member states, because the member states will be wanting an integrated approach. They don't want different agencies coming in and saying things that are in contradiction to each other or don't fit together. So it's going to be really important for the system as a whole to figure out how to collaborate better. And I think a lot of it is about making sure that the amazing quality of staff that we have working for the UN, the knowledge and the specialisms that we have, people are able to see how their knowledge fits together into the bigger picture of sustainable development. So we're feeling very interested in how to do this. We had a good discussion in our own governing body just a few days ago in November. And the conclusion was that yes, we're up for it. We see the opportunity, but we also see the responsibility, and we're looking forward to being, a more active players in the United Nations system, whether it be at the level of the new high-level political forum or whether it be in UN country teams.